Welcome back to the Men's Talk Show. Man, we are getting a lot of good feedback from you guys on our TikTok, on our Discord, on our YouTube. Our last YouTube channel got the most views of any of our episodes. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We're back. Wayne, Daron, and Chris, we're here. And today we're going to talk about childhood trauma, right? I know many of us experienced this, and a lot of us never received any help or guidance to deal with that. And we're going to talk about it today. So, Duran, I'm going to kick it off to you and go ahead and tell your story.
Yeah, I have a lot of childhood trauma from the past, but it's three specific stories that I, want to share that hopefully resonates with men around the world. I was bullied, when I was, in elementary, junior high, and high school. It's something that I don't really talk about a lot because, it's very depressing to talk about it, but you know, we need to talk more about our childhood trauma as men. You know, that's how we grow and learn. But to make a long story short, it was this guy. I'm not gonna mention any names, but just because of legal purposes, but just you got to trust me on this. It'll all be complete when I'm done explaining it. Yeah, it was this guy that I was going to school with. He was Puerto Rican, and I was 6'1" when I was in, and I was pretty tall when I was in elementary. Most kids are not really tall like I am, but he thought that he can pick on me. He thought that he can say whatever he wanted to say, and just thought I would never do anything about it. And boy, I tell you, I don't know where this anger came from, because I guess just all the combination of all the little things he would try to do to pick on me and say things to me to get a reaction out of me. But boy, when I tell you, one day I just got so tired of his mess. And some of the kids was agitating him. Go over there, pick on him, take that pencil away from him. And one day I just snapped. I just picked him up, slammed him on the ground because I'm tall and he's short. So it's no brainer there. He thought that I wouldn't do anything, but I picked him up, slammed him down on the ground, and I wanted to beat his face in. That's just how mad I was. And I almost thought to pick up a chair too. But, you know, some stopped me right there in that moment because he ain't worth going to jail for. That was very traumatizing for me. He, you know, when you get to that point where you have to stop yourself from doing something, from killing somebody, that's when you know you got it bad. That's really sad that I had to get to that point. But at some point you have to defend yourself. Are you gonna keep letting people pick on you? And you got to set a message. And so for the rest of that school year, he never bothered me. He never said anything. He felt so humiliated. And I felt bad because I did that. But what other choice was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to let him keep picking on me? No. He needed to learn a lesson. And the message was clear. Everybody thought I was Shaq after I did that. They kept calling me Shaq and kept saying, Daron, you did that. And I felt so bad for him because every time I would walk by him, because we had a lot of classes together, he wouldn't say anything to me. He wouldn't look at me. He was just like, it was just like a completely different person from the person that used to pick on me. But you have to
So,
set a message in life.
what age or what year in school did this happen?
I was in elementary, so I was like, I think I was like 5 or 6. No, no, no. I think I was like 8 or 9 or something like that. And
Hold up. Not to change the subject, but you said you were 6'1" in elementary school
yeah, I was pretty tall.
at 9 years old.
Yeah, I was
How
tall.
tall are you now?
I'm like 6'3" now.
Oh, so you didn't. I'm thinking, we never met in person. So I'm like, man, this dude's like 7'5".
No,
I was
no, no,
doing
no,
that math in
no.
my
It
head too.
I was pretty tall when I was in elementary, junior high, and then I think I got a little bit more taller when I was in high school, but not that much.
Okay.
But you
So
know, I was
you
kind of ashamed
you
of that too because I was tall and
yeah, absolutely. I remember like not like I'm gonna get back to your story, but I remember like when I was a kid, when we had tall people, people made fun of them, call them string bean and Jolly Green Giant and all those things like that. And yes, I mean like people think because you're tall, it's all good, but you had to go through things too.
yeah.
So go ahead, go
I
ahead.
felt insecure because I was the tallest person in the class. And this one girl that I was talking to, she said, "Don't be ever be ashamed of how tall you are. You better stand up straight and act like you got a purpose in life." And that resonated with me because then ever since then, it's like I'm tall, but you know, I can't help my genetics, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So, you have to set an example for, bullying. Like you can't let it go on. Most people they will just let people keep bullying them. They won't say anything. They wouldn't tell their parents. It was You have to set an example because you don't realize that's going to affect your other relationships and other things down the line. And you're not going to trust people. You're not going to have as many friends because you're going to be closed off. And those some of the things I were. But as you unpack that throughout the years, you start to see what it is. But
Well, that's a good point. When you unpack it, you see these details that you didn't see when you were in it, right? And that's like when you were in that moment, it may have been like a snapping scenario, but it was a buildup of the stress, like you mentioned, right? Like nobody just loses their shit for no reason, right? Most people, like it's a compounding thing that eventually builds up to a breaking point. But do you think that the bullying created a more reactive state in you as an adult as well?
yeah, to a certain degree, when I see situations that I know that I'm in, like manipulation and bullying, or people try to take advantage of me, I immediately just stop talking to them
Right,
because something in that moment when I was a child triggers as an adult and said, this is unacceptable behavior, or this is something that you need to take care of immediately. Versus
right
when
on.
you're a child, you don't have that state of mind.
Right.
You know?
So that's our amygdala doing what it does and creating our safety nets and watching out for us, right? It's like our watchtower, but it's not the smartest watchtower either. And that's where like people who come from childhood trauma end up in a reactive state as an adult. And I never understood this until I started realizing that I was in a reactive state because I had spent years being bullied by my brother and neglected by my mother, and then literally dealing with street stress all the fucking time. I was constantly in battles in my neighborhood because my brother was 4 years older than me and he was a tyrant. So he was constantly bullying kids in the neighborhood. So when they would catch me coming home, they would try to start shit with me in order to get back at him. Right. So I had to learn how to protect myself at an early age. That's when like I was a scrapper my entire life. But it taught me how to deal with the situation in that moment. But it wasn't the right way to deal with that situation. But it saved me from a lot of damage when I was a kid. Right. So that's what we do. We build up these little defense layers and these defense mechanisms. Like I have a fucking spiky tongue, man. And if you come at me in a nasty way or you attack me with disrespect, I will rip you apart with my words. And that's not something that I'm proud of. It's a reactive state to the constant barrage of abuse that I was under my entire life. So now, as an adult, when I realize it, I'm reacting as a child to adult situations. I need to wake the fuck up and handle things a little bit differently. Like when my kids disrespect me, I go right back to being a kid being disrespected on the street. What's your first reaction? Is you get pissed off, to yell, to use my spiky tongue, right? But against my kids, that ain't gonna work, man. So I had to learn some real fucking new skills and really check into why I was reacting. Why was I snapping so fucking quickly to these little nuances of stress in my life? Not major things, but just like this little teeny tiny thing. And I would have this massive reaction over it. And I was always like man, maybe I'm just like, I got a real fucking temper. But when I went through my trauma program and I started realizing the amount of fucking abuse I've been through my entire life, and I talked to a really, really good psychologist who just explained how our brain works. And he said, your brain is in a survival state. You have been in a survival state since you were a kid. So that is your normal operating function, but that is not a human's normal operating function. So you've been dealing with adrenaline, cortisol, and stress since you were a kid. And that kind of shit damages your body to such a massive extent. Like there's a reason why I can't gain weight, why I can't build like actual muscle mass, because my stress and my childhood trauma eats muscle. I never fucking knew that. I had no clue that that kind of stuff was possible, but it literally ate my body. I used to be 180 pounds and fit as fuck, man, when I was boxing. Like I was a brick. And now I am right on the borderline of anorexia, which is fucking crazy to think, because I was always proud of myself. I'm always proud of my body. But through
Yeah.
the years and through the compounded stress, it's just breaking me down to this point.
So I think we talked about that a bit in the previous episode, how stress physically affects you. Um, and as a health coach, I learned that in college too. It's like, like you just said, the stress is just, you think it's one thing, but it affects so much of your physical and mental and emotional life, even towards like people have like digest and what's the word? Gut problems, right? They got
Indigestion.
yes, like gut problems, and a lot of that stems from stress because too much of the hormones and things like that, and so yeah, it's like people would really need to start dealing with that. And real quick, I wanted to talk about something that I saw on the web is that exposure to traumatizing events as a kid is associated with elevated risk of developing enduring physical, psychological, and social problems as an adult. And then people who like were emotionally neglected or sexually abused or even non just physically but non-sexually abused as a kid before the age of 12, at the age of 29, they had PTSD. And so it's like you're saying, as an adult, you're realizing this and you're trying to figure it out, but all those things are compartmentalized inside your brain. It's just trying to store it away. And as you become an adult, they just start to come out. And you're just trying to, and a lot of us don't figure out why or ask the question why I act this way. And so, applause to you for asking those questions and figuring out why do I act this way? Because some people are like, that's just how I am. But that's not who you are. There's a reason why you act that way. For all of us, while we are as adults, something stems from us as a kid.
I used to say that to myself too. It's just how I am. I'm just an asshole. But I'm not, dude. I'm so fucking loving and so kind and so happy and go lucky. And I'm a fucking funny dude. I like to joke around and have fun. That's who I am. Who I get to be when somebody fucks with me is very different, but that person protects the other person. And I realize that now. I get that. There's a fucking need for this. I don't hate that person who is reactive, because that guy saved me from so much bullshit. Right? But I can't use that guy in the people with the people that I love and the people that I care about. And I have to learn to discern the two to be able to navigate these situations properly, right? Because again, my amygdala, because I dealt with so much, is so stupid. It has no clue. It's like, oh, somebody with an orange shirt, he's dangerous.
Yeah, fight or flight. Hey,
Yeah,
real
dude,
quick,
that's it.
I have a question for you. How tall are you?
I'm 5'7".
Oh, okay.
So
I was
I'm
gonna,
the other end of the bullying. I was always bullied for being short and skinny.
no, me too. I'm 5'7", 5'8", so we're the same. All right. I was like, man, I'm the short guy in the group. No, but I was always skinny as a kid too. And then when I was younger, like I had adult ears when I was in elementary. So like people always called me Dumbo. Now my ears are just normal, but as a kid, they just stuck out. Like, oh, Dumbo. And I always hated it. And I was like, whatever. But To go back to what you were just saying, how you had like a person inside of you who took all those things and saved the other person, the fun person inside of you. So I just watched this show um called Moon Knight. It's
Yeah,
a it's a Marvel show on Disney Plus, and because I went through the whole on seven I went through the whole MCU timeline because I had some time, so I went through the
nice,
beginning all the way to the end. And I
nice.
got to Moonlight, and this I had no clue what was going on, but yeah, this guy had trauma, emotional trauma from the kid, and he ended up having a split personality inside of him, and finally it came out as an adult. And then at the end of the series, there's only 6 episodes in the series, is where he's talking to himself, and he has to go through and realize and find out the why. What happened to make this split? Why are you like this? And eventually he accepts it. He accepts it, and he tells himself inside, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you had to go through that. It's not your fault. And you don't have to be like that anymore. And now he like lives as one. And of course, it's still a superhero show, so like he brings out that guy when he needs to fight the other people. But and then he has the other guy, the nicer, sweeter guy inside who now lives the day. But yeah, I thought that was so interesting because someone with a health background, that the show really talked about mental health like that.
Yeah,
So I hope more people watch it, not just because of the MCU, but because of the social impacts about men dealing with
I
mental
like
health.
that show. I like that show too, man. And I liked it for the same reasons you did. It was like it was different. You know, they were talking about some really cool shit and why this all came about. But that's literally like you hit it right on the head, man. That that John Wick inside of me protects me really good. And I don't have to worry about anything because I know he can take care of me. Right? And I'm like 130 pounds, not super fit. I am dangerous as fuck. I know that. But I don't have to be dangerous all the time. I get to be the loving, kind, caring, compassionate me that I want to be. That's the person I want to be. The person who I was forced to be is much different. And like you wouldn't recognize it too, man. Like I could literally, if I were to get into a fight, you would not recognize the person that I am. Somebody comes to attack my children, you would not recognize the funny guy that's in front of you. You would just not be the same person. I'm snarling. I grow about maybe a foot taller. I get maybe 50 pounds heavier. It's just how it happens, man. I get super, super fucking intimidating. But I'm just a small, happy, scrawny pipsqueak of a guy. But when I get mad, I see this reaction in other people that are like, holy fucking Hulk, dude, just chill out, man. And I like that. I do like that. I like the fact that when somebody fucking pushes me to the edge and I have to go there, it doesn't take long for the other person to say, all right, fuck, I'm sorry, man. I'm just gonna back away from this scenario because I don't want to deal with this kind of crazy right now. Perfect. Thank you. Amygdala worked perfectly. My defense mechanisms work perfectly. Now I can go back to being the happy-go-lucky me.
And yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you wanna you have to have that reactive side in you so people don't take advantage of you. That's very important. I kind of wish that I had set the tone earlier for him not to bully me. I really do. But I'm just gonna share these other two quick stories, and then if you guys have any other stories to share, you could be welcome to share that. So like I said, from elementary, junior high was almost getting close to high school, but not yet. But it was this guy. He was pretty skinnier than I was, but it wasn't so much. He thought he was very slick in some of the things he would try to pull off on me. Like he thought he could just take my food when we have lunch and I wouldn't say anything. He thought that he could make side comments and I wouldn't say anything. And then he go back to his table or his group of friends and say, "Ooh, I said that," and all that. But I caught on to him, and I kind of played into his game. And I wish I shouldn't. I wish I didn't play into his game so much. he didn't per se bully me, but he did manipulation tactics to try to prove that he was tougher than I was, or he tried to prove that he was better than I was. And it didn't really work because I had got the upper hand because I caught on to what he was trying to do. And then with my group of friends, I like I said, I played into his tactics, and I'm not very proud of that. But at that point when you're young, we gotta figure out, you gotta figure out a way to kind of set the tone that let people know that you're not going to be taken advantage of. And so every time he would walk by, me and my friend would just pretend like he doesn't exist, and he would say hi, Daron, and I would just sit there, and I wouldn't say anything because I knew that that would get him, because he's the type of person that, even though he's not my friend, he will say hi. He was just being fake, but he will say hi and pretend like he liked me, but I know he wasn't my friend. And he would come by my lunch table and he would say hi, and I would just sit there and I was just ignore him because I knew that would bother him so much. He's the type of person, he loves confrontation. He just loves attention of being attention of a center. So when I didn't say hi, that really got on his nerves real bad. And I knew I got him with that one. And then every time he would walk by, me and my friend would just sit there and laugh. And we would just laugh. I know it's sad, but to think, to kind of have your mindset in that way, because that's wrong as well too, but I knew I could get him with that. Um, and then at a point, we just kept trying to one up each other and just different things. And then at some point, I got tired of playing the game, and I just said straight up, "Are we friends? Or are we really enemies?" Because at some point, you got to kind of establish what's really going on here. And he swore up and down he was my friend. But if we're friends, why are we trying to one up each other? Why are we trying to do all these different things? So eventually, we just stopped talking to each other and just kind of went our separate ways. Um, and that's kind of a sad story, but I kind of wish I had done things a little bit differently. But when you're a child, you don't, like we said, you don't really think about what you're doing. You just go ahead and do it. And yeah, those are just, I'll just stop at that point because I don't want to think too much about it because it brings back terrible memories. But
Yeah.
how about you?
Um,
Have any
I
stories to tell
mean,
us?
I would say as a kid though, you know, you're learning who you are and yourself. And so it's kind of hard. You can't really say that that was wrong because that's what you knew, at that time. You didn't know anything else.
Yeah, you were
Because
using
you
your
in your
wheelhouse of
environment.
knowledge.
Yeah, you look at the as a kid, you're so impacted by your environment, and that's what you saw around you. Um, so you can't really hold yourself accountable for that when you're a kid. You're still learning who you are, but it's good that you found a non-physical way to take care of the situation, right? So that shows exponential growth from the situation you had as elementary to as a junior high, high school, where you're not using your physical, uh, violence to solve the problem. You
Yeah.
found a non-violent way. Um, so you're like a mini Dr. Martin Luther King in that instance. But yeah, so that's really good. So I talked about how like I got bullied a bit, talking about my ears and stuff like that. And one thing I'll say quickly is, Ron, you're a bit younger than me and Chris, so like there's a little bit of generational gap there. Because you were in middle school and high school in what, like the 2010s or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I graduated in '04, and Chris, you probably graduated with '03, '02. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
and the reason why I say that is because when I grew up, and the way we were taught, which is not absolutely right anyway, was you just sucked it up, right? Everybody was bullied. right? And you went out and you fought on the playground, you fought after school, and you dealt with it, right? You had things that happened in your house, you suck it up and you deal with it, whether it's sexual abuse, emotional abuse, all those things. And as I became an adult, because I said I graduated in '04, the things that your generation started to go through, Duran, was like you seen the very rapid increase in um, teens taking their own lives because of bullying. And so it's definitely something that has to be dealt with and spoken about because as I have a 13-year-old right now, and the last thing I want for her is to feel like she can't talk to me about these things, um, about being bullied and stuff like that because and then she tried to do something to herself. So um, yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation about that.
Dude, that's a really good point, Ron. And something I want to touch on as parent, talk to your kids. Get involved in their lives, know who they talk with, know what they're dealing with at school, talk to them. Because most of the kids that in say my generation, we didn't have access to a loving, caring parent who wanted to hear about this shit. Right. So like when I went home and said that I was getting bullied, my mom said, well, you better fucking toughen up. You either better learn how to swing, you better learn how to run, one or the other. And that's how it
Absolutely.
was. That's how we grew up, man. So when I went to my mom with some really deeper shit, like some essay stuff, like sexual assault stuff when I was a kid, it was the same fucking thing. You better deal with it. I had the same shit happen to me when I was a kid and I had to deal with it. No help, no therapy, no, it's okay, it's not your fault. It was actually mostly I don't believe you. And that's the most fucked up thing that a child can experience. So I had a few like really big events in my life. One was my dad's death. When that happened, my mom didn't give a fuck to talk to me about that. And that probably was the biggest thing that fucked me up as a child, was having my mom tell me that my dad was dead and then not explaining what death was, not nurturing me through that pain that I was dealing with, taking me to a fucking funeral with zero preparation or understanding of what a funeral was. None of that shit. Walking me up to my dad's corpse in a fucking coffin and not even explaining to me that he was not there anymore. Like that's how young I was when my stepdad died. I had no clue what death was. I had never experienced it. Nobody ever fucking talked about it. And my first experience with death was me knocking on my dad's head in his coffin. I fucking remember that vividly when my mom walked me up to the coffin, she, like pushed me over the side so I could look at him. And I was like, Dad, wake up. And I fucking knocked on his forehead, and everyone in the funeral went, and like my mom lost her fucking shit. She beat me so bad right in front of everybody, like just grabbed me by the hair, whipped me around, just fucking whack, 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 as she was ripping me through the funeral home to the back room to tell me how fucking stupid I was. But that wasn't me. Like, what the fuck, lady? Prepare your kids for what they're dealing with a little bit. Talk to them. Be so fucking like up their ass with your hand talking about everything that's going on in your life. They understand that when something feels wrong, something's not right, that you need to speak up and say something. And when they do come to you, you fucking nurture them, love them, care for them. Never send them away to deal with this shit on their own, because they won't deal with it as a kid. They will save it and they will wait until they're 30 years old and then have a completely fucking horrible life because you didn't step up and talk to your kids about what they're dealing with. So don't be my mom. Don't be 90% of the parents that we grew up with. Do something for your kids. Be there for them. If they come to you with a fucking situation, you can't say if it's trauma or not. They will. And they'll come to you if they feel safe with you. And when they do, just love them, care for them, try to help them through this shit. Don't make them turn into adults and have to deal with this on their own.
Yes,
Yeah.
kids, they don't know how to. They really don't. They're small people, but they don't have the maturity or capability to really understand and grasp these life events, these big events. And like you said, we just you just compartmentalize it and it comes out later when you're an adult.
Yeah, and I wish I would have gone to, counseling when I was younger, because I could remember this situation where, you know, I was kind of angry when I was a kid, but I didn't realize all of the combination of bullying and just and which turn into depression, can lead to, trauma, for years, you know. But I wish I would have gone to counseling, when I was younger to kind of like process all of that, because there's a lot to process when you're bullied 2 times, and it's a lot to process, and it can turn into depression. And you don't realize that so soon, and you're wondering why you're depressed all the time. Well, look at the situation you was in. So I would say to people, get your children to go to counseling when they're young. I know they don't want to do it, because I know I didn't want to do it, but try. If you have to be the counselor as a parent, try to talk to your kids more, because I think it needs to be, especially in my generation, you know, we need to talk a lot more about what's going on at our, children's schools and stuff like that, because a lot of half of this depression that's going on in life, they need to, it could be talk. You could talk out the problems and let you, and, just say, how does school on, just ask your kids questions, because that's important. If they get the help early on in life, they won't grow up, bashing out or doing things when they're, that's very abnormal for them when they're an adult. So that's just my two
Yeah,
cents on
like you
that.
said, we all said it. We gotta be there for the kids. Um, and that's the important thing. You have to establish emotional foundation for them when they're younger. So that way, when they're older, they feel open to discuss those things. So I try with that every day with my daughter. Um, because like I said, she's 13 and she's about to get on to those teenage things and interpersonal relationships and things like that. And I want to make sure she knows that she always has somebody in her back. That she don't have to go through those things alone. And you know, all of us here have gone through something in our life, and so many more. And we just don't talk about it at all, especially things like SA, especially for a man. You feel like a weak inside to have to talk about that. Um, So if that's something, speaking to all of our followers, everybody's going to watch this. If that's something you've dealt with, please reach out and just talk to somebody about it. If anything was yours, bully, emotional damage, physical abuse, talk about it with somebody, and hopefully that will help you as an adult when you have um, trying events in your life, like a coworker that tries to berate you, or the road rage, right? Things like that. Um, so yeah, just try to reach out and talk to somebody. Any last minute things you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, like we said, just go, and you got to deal with your trauma at some point. So don't wait. I mean, I'm not going to say don't wait, because everybody processes things on their own time, but just don't wait until you're on your deathbed and say, I wish I could have done that better. Or I wish I could have talked to someone about all of the baggage that I was going through, 50, 60 years down the line. Don't wait that long, try to, if it's a friend or family, just talk. If you have because you never know, tomorrow's not promised, and you got to deal with your trauma at some point. So just talk to someone. Men specifically, we need to talk to people. That's very important. That's the whole reason why we started this talk show. So you can tell us about what's going on. You don't have to hold it in. You don't have to carry all that baggage, because you don't realize all of that is going to lead over to other relationships you get in, other friendships you get in. So just talk to someone. That's just my final thoughts about it.
Chris, what you got?
I will just echo what you guys are saying and speak up because through all my years of trauma and all my years of pain and suffering, the most growth I ever had is when I started to talk about these things. And I started to release them to others and to let them out of my soul. Another really good thing that I did to help get some of this shit out of me so I could live my authentic life was my trauma journal. And I wrote every horrible, fucking nasty thing that ever happened to me in my life. I wrote it down in that book, and it is visceral. It is nasty. There's blood. There's fucking like scribbles and fucking really nasty words, and but it is raw, and it is every bit of the pain that I had inside of me. So it's a really good practice I would suggest for anyone who's carrying around baggage from your fucking youth or your childhood, man. Put it in a book because that book can be one of your greatest sources of power. You may not ever pick it up ever again, but I'm telling you, just to get that shit out of you and put it on paper is a very, very powerful thing for you. And your soul will instantly feel weightless afterwards.
I agree, Chris. I definitely agree. I'm just gonna say this last bit before we, end the show today. You know, I do agree with writing things down, and I actually wrote a memoir that I'm gonna release next year on my 30th birthday. But it was so cathartic writing all of my trauma and putting it down into words. It's just something about reliving your past and rethinking about things you didn't think about when you was in that trauma, that you're thinking about it as a thought as you're writing the book. So definitely I will agree, Chris. Writing things down helps put things into perspective. But on that note, I want to thank you guys for hosting the show with me, as we have always good conversations. I'm hoping that this reaches a lot of men, that they don't have to suffer in silence anymore, because we're in a new age and day where it's okay to cry, show emotions, talk about our trauma, let people let people know your stories, because I guarantee you're not alone as you think you are. We had so many guys that felt like they're alone, but you're not alone. There is help out here. So you don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to suffer in silence. Just know that if you don't have anybody to talk to, you can message us. You know, be here to talk. But on that note, I want to thank you guys for hosting the show with me, and that's all about time we have today.